Central Africa sits on top of the richest mineral belt on the planet, home to nearly 70% of the world's cobalt and some of the highest grade copper deposits on Earth. Without it, the global energy transition doesn't happen. No EV batteries, no power grids, no AI data centers. For decades, getting that copper and cobalt out of landlocked mines in the Congo and Zambia meant diesel trucks, grinding for weeks across some of the worst roads on the continent, up to 45 days to reach a port. This March, that changed. The first commercial shipment of refined copper rolled out of Kolwezi and onto a 1,500-kilometer railway to the Atlantic coast in just 7 days. This is the Lobito Corridor, a real, already operating, multi-billion-dollar infrastructure fight where Western development finance, private logistics giants, and African governments are rewriting how Africa's minerals reach the world. Start with the geography. The backbone is the historic Benguela Railway, 1,289 kilometers of track running from the deep water Atlantic port of Lobito straight to the Democratic Republic of Congo's border, feeding directly into the mining hub of Kolwezi. A separate extension into Zambia's copper belt broke ground earlier this year, still under construction, not yet connected, but designed to bring the world's second largest copper producer onto the same line. The numbers: rail transit from Kolwezi to Lobito, about 7 days, down from up to 45 by road. And instead of shipping east into the Indian Ocean through congested ports, this line runs straight west to the Atlantic, cutting weeks off ocean transit to Europe and North America. Building cross-border heavy rail takes serious multi-jurisdictional capital. The concession to operate and upgrade the line was awarded to the Lobito Atlantic Railway Consortium, commodity trader Trafigura, construction giant Motor Engel, and rail operator Vecturis, under a 30-year concession. In December 2025, they closed a $753 million financing package, $553 million from the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, $200 million from the Development Bank of Southern Africa, structured with the Africa Finance Corporation. That money is expected to lift the line's capacity tenfold to 4.6 million tons a year and cut mineral logistics costs by up to 30%. And it's just part of a much bigger bet. Total international investment in the corridor from G7 governments and development banks combined has now passed $6 billion. There's an unmistakable geopolitical contest underneath this. For 2 decades, Chinese firms led the processing and acquisition of African critical minerals, and Western economies realized their EV and battery supply chains ran through a single choke point they didn't control. Lobito is the flagship project of the G7's Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. China answered. Last September, Beijing signed a $1.4 billion deal with Zambia and Tanzania to revive the rival Tazara Railway to Dar es Salaam, handing a 30-year concession to a China railway subsidiary on nearly identical terms to Lobito's own deal. For the mining nations caught between them, that rivalry is translating into real leverage. 2 competing offers, both racing to modernize the same trade. The headlines focus on copper and cobalt, but the smarter money is watching what grows up around the rail line itself. Commercial agriculture and cold chain logistics, opening Angola's fertile central highlands to feed mining hubs and export markets. Industrial-scale solar and battery storage to power depots and processing plants along the route. And dry ports, automated customs clearance, bonded warehousing, digital border processing. Every station and border crossing on this line is now a demand center for logistics, real estate, and digital infrastructure that didn't exist 5 years ago. This isn't just a story about minerals moving through. It's a story about who benefits along the way. The corridor has already created an estimated 7,500 direct and indirect jobs across Angola, the DRC, and Zambia. Looking ahead, DRC's president has projected close to 30,000 jobs from this corridor in his country alone. In Zambia, planners expect roughly 500 permanent roles and another 5,000 temporary ones in construction, logistics, and border operations. And it's not only about the railway itself. Faster, cheaper transit reconnects rural farmers to urban markets, improves food security, and opens informal cross-border trade that barely existed before. As DRC's Prime Minister put it this year, this corridor has to benefit the people first, not just the mining majors. So why are investors circling? Because this is rare. One bet that gives simultaneous exposure to infrastructure, mining, industrialization, logistics, and regional integration, underwritten by long-term take-or-pay contracts from Tier 1 mining companies that guarantee the cash flow. That's exactly the kind of de-risked structure that got a US development bank comfortable writing a $553 million check. It isn't risk-free. Entrenched trucking networks profit from the old system and have every incentive to resist it. Security concerns are real, and the whole plan depends on 3 governments, multiple lenders, and a private consortium staying coordinated for decades. This is frontier infrastructure. The upside is real, and so is the risk. Lobito proves that when infrastructure is de-risked with real structured finance and sovereign alignment, capital moves fast, and it's no longer theoretical. Real copper is already on that railway right now, meeting London Metal Exchange purity standards, sold to European buyers as low-carbon supply. What started as a regional rail upgrade is now reshaping how Africa's most valuable exports reach the world, cutting a 45-day bottleneck down to 7. The race to build the continent's next logistics backbone isn't coming, it's already running. Verified, sourced, and worth watching closely. The real story behind Africa's mineral rail race. Which corridor wins long-term? Atlantic facing Lobito or Indian Ocean facing Tazara? Tell us in the comments.